Hello and welcome to this week's training. I am super sick, so I am not going to put my camera on today, which means you're going to get full screen share of notes, which should be super fun for you. So I didn't want to leave you guys hanging without a training. I wanted to give you something, even though I'm not for viewing purposes. All right, so let's go ahead and screen share. This week we're talking about um Oops. This week we're talking about my interview process with clients in order to get content out of them. So a lot of my clients are really great orators, but they are terrible, terrible communicators as far as they can't write, which is totally fine. That's why I exist. So a lot of times I am interviewing them instead. Sorry, I need to get arranged here. Do. Okay, I think we're good to go. Um, Sharing the right screen. There we go. Okay. So great writing. The more and more I write, the more I realize that great writing doesn't start with words. It starts with questions and with thoughts. So as much as a writer, we use our time, writing and crafting and creating formulas. Our much more of our time is doing research and extracting data from our clients, whether it's for lead magnets, email scripts, or sale pages. The key here is to capture their authentic voice, their tone, and original ideas. So in the next few minutes, I'm going to show you how to master the art of asking questions that pull out the gold. All right. So step one is to set the stage. Step one is going to be to set the stage. So the key point here is to build trust really fast. People open up when they feel safe. So we want to make them feel safe. Build trust fast. So you're first going to start by like breaking the ice, basically. You've heard of icebreakers before, but start with something like what's something that made you laugh recently? So even though it's light, doesn't mean it has to be generic. It's not like how was your day today? It's what's something that made you laugh recently? Even though that's a light question, it begs for a deep answer. And it gets them right into their emotions. Next is to make sure you're mirroring their energy. So if they're laughing, you're laughing. Obviously, don't be fake about it, but try to get on their level. So if they're relaxed, ugh, match their vibe as much as possible. Match the vibe. Um, if they're intense, lean in. If they're laughing, laugh, yada, yada, yada. Why this works. Why it works. People don't give truth up usually just to strangers. They open up to people who understand them and who get them. So this helps you pull out stories and language that sounds like them, not like you. Um, People go to strangers normally. Okay, so that was step one. Step two is to go beyond the facts. Um, so the key point here is that facts tell and stories sell. So we need the facts in order to get into storytelling. Here, let's try to keep it the same. Key point, facts tell, stories sell. Um, so with this point, we're gonna go straight into what I call trigger moments. And they're like the defining moments, right? Uh, that they saw everything change or that they, broke or whatever. So we can ask a question like, tell me about a time when you felt unstoppable. Or when What was the moment? Like, what was the moment that this all changed? And I like this second question because a lot of times they're really good at telling like their origin story. And then they're like, and now I'm a millionaire. And you're like, okay, but what was the moment that this all changed? So you can interrupt their mind in their like normal story that they're used to telling by asking this question, and they have to really think about it. Next is to dig into emotion. Emotion. So you can ask, what did that feel like? You're trying to get them into back into there. Next is to challenge them. What's something that people misunderstand about you? Um, so like here's an example of how to put this all together. I'm sorry, like I'm sick, so I'm kind of like going straight for it. So a real example would be like instead of asking like how did you start your business, ask what was the exact moment you decided I'm doing this. So that kind of question gives you the raw material that really resonates in emails and sale pages. So actually I have this written out because I thought it was a good point. All right, so that's step two. Let's highlight these so they're easy to tell the difference between. All right, step three. Ooh, Lord help me. Is master the follow-up. Yes, there's follow-up and question asking, just like there is in sales. Who would have thought? The key point here is you got to know that the first question is just the beginning. It's just the tip of the iceberg. Like the real good stuff comes after the second and third question. The first answer is just the tip of the iceberg. Is it an E or U? It's an E. Yes. So how you do this is you echo and expand. So this kind of sounds like you mentioned X. That sounds powerful. Can you dive deeper into that? So it's a really, you know how toddlers are like, why? Why? They ask the question, why? So you're trying to get like a toddler, but not annoy the fuck out of the person you're interviewing. And you're trying to get like five, six, seven levels deep from the original question, because that's where the good stuff is. So clarify. So these are ways that you're asking why without asking why. Clarify for fresh insight is the next one. So a lot of times they'll start explaining something and it'll be at a super high level or the level they're currently at, which won't resonate with their followers. You have to go a couple levels lighter, right, in order to engage with their current following. So this is a question I love to ask all the time. If you had to explain this to your younger self, younger self, Lord help me. How would you describe it? And that gets them really thinking, or I ask them, I'm like, okay, now tell this to me like you are talking to yourself 5 years ago. And they pause and then they usually are good at it. Pro tip. This is a pro tip. The gold is often in throwaway comments. So listen for like unique phrases and metaphors they use that you can reuse in their copy. This is why I'm always recording these meetings and always transcribing them because a lot of times they'll drop a phrase that is perfect for them or perfect for a hook or perfect for a thumbnail. And you will miss it if you're just trying to take notes or remember it. Record everything. So the gold often Sides. Offhanded the side comments. Phrases and metaphors. You, I know, I know, I know, I know. All right. Step number 4. You guys are doing good. So step 4 is using silence and specificity. Ooh, it's a hard word. And she can spell it too. What? Okay. Okay, so the key point is that truth lives in the silence. And this is a old school interrogation tactic I used to use when interviewing people in jails when I was a social worker. So silence isn't awkward. It's oops. All right. So how you use this is you pause after asking. So ask your question, then count to 5 in your head. Don't fill the space. And it will force them to answer the question, or it'll force them to give you more information than they just gave you because it's awkward for them. Next is get vivid. And people like to generalize, so we're trying to get we're getting specificity. So what you can ask questions like what exactly did you say or do in that moment? Where were you standing? What was the look on their face? Like imagine you're trying to direct a movie and you're trying to get it right. So you're asking these questions to give you these specifics in order for you to get it right. And so you can actually visualize it. You want to be able to visualize it. Because if you can visualize it, it'll make for better copy. So why it works. Specific details make content a lot more memorable. General makes you forgettable. And silence gives people the space to think, and that's where the most authentic responses surface. So it's perfect for nailing their voice. Um, where do you have this typed out? All right, and the last step is step 5, which is end strong. So the key point is here the best insights often come last because they've been talking about it, so they've been thinking about it. So make sure you give yourself time at the end of the interview for like closing thoughts. And I always ask them, okay, I remind them like the topic or the chapter topic that we're talking about. And I'm saying, and I tell them, with all of this, what do you want to end this chapter with? Like, how do you want to conclude this thought? And usually they come back with some absolute gold. So um, make sure you keep enough room for that. Insights often come last. So how you can kind of manage this is close with curiosity. Curiosity is an absolute superpower, and I need to do a training just on curiosity. But so that question comes into play, right? Is there anything I didn't ask? This is a great question. Ask that you think I should have. This is great for when you're being interviewed for a job too, to be honest. This is a great question to ask all the time. Um, I love that question. You can also use a reflective hook. So if someone wrote your story, what's the one thing you'd want them to capture perfectly? Or you've seen those Instagram stories where it's like in one word, describe your month, that kind of thing. People love it. So we call that the reflective hook. And the trigger question is this. Someone wrote your story. What's the one thing you would want them to capture perfectly? And it also kind of gives you a look into what's really important to them. Um, This often triggers really vulnerable and authentic answers, so it's great for emotional hooks and scripts. You also need to be careful too, because as you're interviewing a client, specifically when I interview clients for books and about their stories and pull them deeper by asking these questions and using this kind of process, you're going to get them super emotional. And you need to help them manage their emotions in those moments so they don't feel icky after they get done with you. So if you're like talking about a hard time or a negative time, you need to bring them back around into the positive and into the silver lining before you leave them. And a lot of times I'll stop a client because I can tell they're getting too emotional or too into that negative moment, and I'll be like, "Hey, you're here with me right now. We're writing a book. How crazy is this? This is incredible that you came from there to here." And I'll like bring them back into the present. So just be aware of that, that as you're asking these questions and going deeper, that sometimes you'll have to manage your client's emotions because you don't want them to get lost and you never want to end a session with you on a negative note. You always want them to walk away feeling positive. And that's the difference between good and great writing. It's again, it's not just the words, it's the questions and the thought process. So make sure you just stay super curious, always go deeper and embrace those silent moments. That's where the real stories live. And that's how you create copy that feels true to your clients. So a quick recap is uh, one, we're going to set the stage. If we can type, set the stage. So build quick trust. Right. Number two is go beyond the facts. So trigger stories and emotions. Oops. Master the follow-up. You're gonna dig deeper. Dig deeper than the first, if I can type. Sorry, guys, the drugs got me all fucked up. All right, four is embrace the silence. The silence and specificity. Oof. Pause and get vivid. Get visual. And then end strong. Ask the questions they didn't expect. So if you practice this system, refine it, make it your own, and your interviews will go from basic Q&A interrogations to unforgettable story sessions. And that's all I have for you today. I will put this in the notes below the video, and please follow, subscribe, and share with people if you found this of any value. Love you guys. Bye.